Well, thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. I think that one of the most crucial things about this budget is that we return to a surplus position. If we do not return to a surplus position and what was envisaged is in the 2021 year, small surplus, more substantial surpluses after that, then the budget loses its integrity, and in any future time it really won't matter what you say in the budget because there will be no money to do it. This is a task that was left to us, Mr Deputy Speaker, by the trajectory that the Labor Party imprudence put us on. At the time, I remember being at the front doors and giving a speech because I was amazed at how quickly that they had taken our gross debt from around about $60 billion to over $100 billion in lightning form. Then came the time where apparently that they were going to save Australia from the global financial crisis. Might I say, Mr Deputy Speaker, we were saved from the global financial crisis not by school halls or ceiling insulation or other ridiculous money that was just thrown out the door for people to go spend as they wish. A lot of it went into such things as pokies. I don't know whether pokies revitalised the Australian economy, but they certainly gave it a good crack. We were saved by a range of things. Coal exports was a very big one. Iron ore exports was another very big one. And also we had a large export of grain, especially from Western Australia at the time. These factors contributed to our capacity to avoid a downturn in the economy, to keep that record growth going. It had nothing to do with Labor imprudence. And so the repair mechanism from that trajectory which we were placed on has been long and arduous. It has taken hard work. It's required people to deal with a lot of pain as they had to try and remove ourselves from these crazy contractual obligations like some madman who'd been on a late-night shopping splurge on late-night television, buying everything they could possibly see. And now where we are is heading back to a surplus. Now I hope, no matter who the government is, that they are cognisant of the fact that if we don't move towards surpluses, then your promises to an electorate are meaningless because there is no money to back them up. Within this budget, though, Mr Deputy Speaker, we do have a range of things that talks to the growth of our nation, and I just want to identify a few of them. Infrastructure is the core to the development of our nation. We have a nation that is basically seen through the eyes of a crescent economy. It starts around about Rockhampton, goes through to around about Adelaide and sticks very closely to the coast. That is not the way our nation should see its future. It has to develop further regions. And within this budget, we have the continued equity injection into something that the National Party fought for, and I was proud to play my part, and that was the Inland Rail. This is absolutely vital in how we drive another section of our economy into a form of economic development, and you will see this in its most prevalent form in places such as parks, which Pacific National is already investing in excess of $35 million into new infrastructure there, into Narrabri, into places such as Gundawindi, Toowoomba, and of course the beneficiaries of this reside at the bookends, which is Melbourne and Brisbane. This is one of the most seminal statements of regional development that this nation has seen, certainly in my time in politics, and it is something that we fought for and we can still do whilst bringing the budget back into surplus. Hand in glove with that, I'd also like to acknowledge, yes, we do have an obligation to make sure that we make the lives of people better, and some of the previous member for Lingiari brought to our attention such things as the renal dialysis issues, and these are vitally important, especially for the Aboriginal people, the Indigenous peoples, and especially those of the Western Deserts. Renal dialysis is vitally important because of the high incidence of renal failure that is present in Indigenous communities. You would also, Mr Deputy Speaker, have a personal engagement in the investment that will be made in such things as the Murray-Darling Basin Medical School, something that I know that you have fought diligently and ardently over such a long period of time. This also, the only reason these sort of things can happen, once more, comes from the prudence of having a budget that is ultimately going back to surplus. We must also invest in the roads. Within my own electorate, we're looking for close to $75 million to be spent in the current year on capital on roads, especially the New England Highway, which is our corridor of commerce that will go between the Inland Rail to our west and the Pacific Highway to our east. To our east, we also see something that has been fought for a long period of time, and I acknowledge the work for the member for Cowper, and that is the Coffs Harbour Bypass. The Coffs Harbour Bypass is one of those areas, it's a bottleneck, and as we have a national purpose to basically be able to get on a road, a dual highway around about Gympie and go all the way to Melbourne, then these bottlenecks must be removed, and one of the last major ones was Coffs Harbour, and now we have brought forward the capacity to start working on that. It was always in the budget, but it was the timing that was the issue. I know that the member for Wide Bay is very aware and thankful of the work that will be done on Section D of the Bruce Highway, Section D, which was slightly easier because there were other savings, and these savings in the allocation within that portfolio are allowed to be brought forward to like purposes, and a like purpose was obviously seen in Section D of the Bruce Highway. Regional airport security is another issue that is of vital importance, and the upgrade of regional security is one of the beneficiaries of that, or two beneficiaries that reside in my electorate. That is Armidale. We've invested a large amount of money between the federal government and the state government in Armidale, and this will allow another $3.5 million to take that airport to the next stage, and that is getting proper screening facilities in. We have managed to, like to acknowledge former leader of the National Party, Warren Truss, and the work he did in bringing about $1 billion for the Building Better Regions Fund. Through my time, we refurbished that for in excess of $500 million, and that fund continues on. This works hand in glove with the requirements of councils, who always have certain projects that they are looking for, and not trying to be parochial but working closely with councils allows us to deliver to people the projects that they want. There's also been an unfreezing of the financial assistance grants, otherwise known as FAGS grants, which were formerly had their indexation freezed, and this has been now released so that councils can have greater access to money. We must work closely with our local councils because they are, to be quite frank, closest to the people, and we need, in that working relationship between state and federal and local governments, we must allow them to have access to the resources to do their job. By so doing, they are doing ours. With other issues, we can also see that there is a $3.5 billion roads of strategic importance. Now, $1.5 billion of this is going to be spent in Northern Australia, so I'd like to take issue with what the former member for Lingiari brought up, saying that, what are we doing in Northern Australia? Well, this is yet another statement, a $1.5 billion statement that allows $2 billion to be spent on other roads of strategic importance. And I think, Mr Deputy Speaker, that we should really start thinking of roads that go not only north-south but east-west. Within my patch, we have things such as the Brooksna Highway, and making sure that we can upgrade that. It's a major corridor. We have the Taree to Tamworth, and including such things as the Buckets Way, Port Stephens cutting, vitally important piece of infrastructure, needs to be upgraded. And even recently, the Armidale Regional Council approached me on a major road which is Kempsey to Armidale, a large section of which going through the Great Dividing Range, or going over the range, is still dirt. This is without side rails, So if someone goes off the edge, you're dead. And it's roads such as that are crying out for an investment that can only be made by a budget that is going back to the surplus. And I know, Mr Deputy Speaker, your Bells Lima Road is something that you drove us half crazy with. So it's good to see. It's good to see that there is the capacity for a pool of funds that will allow us to deal with issues such as that. The digital transformation package, $10.1 million, will also allow us to further build on something that has been a core issue for the Nationals Party, and that is decentralisation. This is genuine decentralisation to regional towns, not decentralisation to other suburbs within Sydney or to other major capitals within our nation, but actually to regional towns. I know one of the more noteworthy of those, and it's something we fought for, was the relocation of the Australian Pest and Veterinary Medicines Authority from Canberra to Armidale. It obviously builds on the concept of centres of excellence, of people who can socialise the acumen on research into plants and animals, and by so doing in an area such as Armidale, a university town with cathedrals, with art galleries, with the CSIRO, that we hope for after the transition, which is always, has to be managed, that we allow and set up our nation for a better future with resident expert knowledge and the capacity for that to cross-fertilise in such a way as we have a better outcome for the CSIRO, a better outcome for the University of New England and the research into animals and plants, and a better outcome for the Australian Pest and Veterinary Medicines Authorities, because these skill sets are in close proximity to one another. In your own electorate, Mr Deputy Speaker, we are doing the same thing, or we set up the same thing to do with the financing of soft commodity products. And to stand behind such things, and I commend the work done by David Littleproud in finalising the movement of the Regional Investment Corporation, a $4 billion investment corporation, to Orange, where it can cohabitate with Paraway Financial, which is part of Macquarie Bank, with the regional rural investment arm of the National Australia Bank, with the Department of Agriculture, creating yet again another centre of excellence, a centre of financial excellence, as I've said, maybe excessively, but giving vision to it, our own form of Chicago at Orange. That is what you want. That is what you want to do when you have real vision for this nation. I know there's further decentralisation, such as the Murray-Darling Basin Authority. A section of that has gone to Wodonga. That is good, taking jobs to Wodonga. And might I note, there are more applications for those jobs in Wodonga than we had places available for them. That is real decentralisation. And I know that the Minister for Agriculture, David Littleproud, the member for Maranoa, has further goals to set there in further decentralisation. I also would like to commend the work that is done by the member for Riverina, the leader of the National Party, and what he is doing to make sure that the offices for the Inland Rail Corporation, for the Inland Rail section, are not in Canberra, but actually out in places such as Dubbo. This is the sort of decentralisation that our nation has to do if we want to evolve from this crescent economy that resides predominantly within 10 to 50 kilometres from the coast in an arc between Rockhampton round to Adelaide. It is only through a budget such as this that we have the capacity to invest in what is important. For the New England, it has been a good outcome. The further investment that is happening in the New England Highway, the further investment that is happening in our airports, the further investment that is happening in securing better water infrastructure. And I note we've had the upgrade of Chaffey Dam in the past, and then we are now driving for a further upgrade of water infrastructure to secure the water supply for the city of Tamworth. If we hadn't upgraded the water supply, we'd be in dire consequences now. We have in the past. We fought for it, we achieved it, and water is wealth, and it also underpins the economic development of those areas. We are working hand in glove also with the resettlement of refugees. It was great the other day with International Settlement Services to see such people as the Yazidi people who were persecuted. We might remember when they were on Mount Sinjar being pursued by ISIS, and there's a great sense of joy I have in making sure that these people find refuge and solace and a great future in a city such as Armidale. And we can show compassion when we have the wallet to do it. It is very hard to show compassion when you don't have the money. So the first responsibility, and concluding where I started, the first responsibility in anything is to make sure that what you spend ultimately is less than what you receive. Otherwise, you will go broke. You must pay off the credit card. Otherwise, your promises are without purpose. They are false. They are misleading. And you leave your nation in the future in a dire position where the people who come after us and our children have to pay back debts, and it really would be debts. We have to set ourselves on that path, no matter who is the government. We must set ourselves that task, we must put ourselves on that path, otherwise we are being totally and utterly selfish in how we see it, and we are letting down the people in the future who would have needed that money for a better lifestyle, for a better future, for better health, for better education, for better roads, for a nation that can defend itself, for a nation that has the capacity to show compassion in looking after others, and for a nation that decentralises to a greater purpose in the future.
I thank the member.